Too bad. Oh my God, yes, man. You made it back. Were you in New Hampshire as well?
Yeah.
But now, did you take the same flight as Justin?
Yeah.
And you got to ride first class, I assume.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Did Justin get to ride first class? Because he's always bragging about it.
Hey, great show, everybody. Really good time.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Man, that was a long, high intensity run.
Yes. Sorry for you guys going live and holding up the fort. You guys were soldiers. Thank you.
I can't
Thank
believe
you so
we
much
haven't.
for doing that.
Meryl Barr is 100% right. We're bad hosts for not bringing up the steak bed. Where are we at on that?
Well, the steak bet, as was made a few months ago, pits C. Robert Cargill against now Brian and I are on the same side, with the election being the decider. Brian and I are betting the house money that Donald Trump will win, and Cargill has the difficult position of not only picking the winner in the general election, but also picking who's going to come out of the primary. And because we feel bad that he has to do that, he got to pick 3 candidates that would come out.
So it's sort of like when you go to the fair in a carny, you know. Yeah, he knows you have no chance of knocking over the milk jugs, so he hands you 3 super soft foam baseballs that can't possibly knock over the milk jugs.
Well, no, I mean, look. One of them is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
You have Bernie Sanders, who of course tied for all intents and purposes in Iowa, won last night in New Hampshire, but then the other 2, Elizabeth Warren. Did not earn a delegate last night, 8% in a state where she is a neighboring senator to, and Joe Biden, who did even worse and fled the state in shame before the results were actually, as people were still voting, he literally fled the state because he was afraid of the results. So those 2 not looking as good, but you do have Bernie Sanders. So
if Sanders, it's looking like Sanders will get the nomination. If Sanders does get the nomination, I will double or nothing that bet.
You know what? That's 4 steaks total, and I've already accepted it. It's on the internet, and there's no backseas.
yeah, man. It is wide open, though. I will say that. I mean, Bernie should be credited as the front runner, but man, I'll tell you what, you ask like 4 people that are like covering this thing their opinions, and you get 6 different opinions on how things are going to end up.
Here's what I would love to have happen is we keep having Cargill back on the show, and he keeps doubling down, and at some point we're literally betting. In order to cover the bet, we have to convert the entire mass of planet Earth into steaks for one side or the other, because it's just exponential.
We'll just have to stop at the point that there's a cow involved.
Yeah,
exactly.
Man, that would be the ultimate fuck you. Is that there's so many steaks, and then one day there's a package, you open the door, and it's a baby cow that you have to raise.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm telling you guys, though, I feel good. I feel real good. I have looked at the polling data, and I'm saying doubling down that quickly is not the wisest choice, but I'll take it.
I mean, I shouldn't speak on Justin's behalf.
I'm gonna wait until things wash out with the nomination. I still think that there's a fair shot that. Well, I'll just say this. There's no other candidate that I think is going to have a full press organized campaign to deny him the nomination other than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, like I was talking with a couple of people earlier because they were like, why is everybody running to Mayor Pete right now? And it's that same group of neoliberals who are very desperate for Bernie Sanders not to get the nomination.
Yeah.
And so they were going for Biden, and once they saw Biden couldn't win, they started flocking to, Warren and Klobuchar, and they felt that they couldn't win, and so they just kind of scattered and said, Mayor Pete, I guess. And Mayor Pete has done very well in these first two contests, but he's got a very rough road ahead of him, especially in South Carolina, where he polls negatively with people of color.
Yeah,
so,
he's going to eat the L in South Carolina. The question is whether or not he can get anything going in Nevada and then therefore, catapult that into Super Tuesday. But he's running a very good campaign. He's running, it was described to me by somebody in the media as cutthroat, and I would agree with it. Like there he is running it's a very smiling face, but there are some very, very, very sharp angles to that campaign that I think is part of the reason why they've been able to maneuver themselves into such a position. It also helps that the whatever voodoo magic that was reanimating the shambling corpse of Joe Biden has seemed to wear off, and now everybody's starting to recoil in horror as he opens his mouth.
Well, and keep in mind, I don't think very many people loved Joe Biden. I think that ultimately the majority of Democrats want a centrist. I think that there is a hard upper limit to what Bernie could get unless he could prove so much momentum that they believe he's an unstoppable force to defeat Trump. But we're only just now starting to see the effects of Mike Bloomberg's unbelievable ad spend and his awareness go up. I think that number one, if I was going to place interesting bets, I think we have a contested convention. Second to that, I think that Biden drops out and throws his support behind the number one centrist, Mayor Pete, and that Mayor Pete gets the nomination. And as I've said forever, if he does get the nomination, I do believe he'll beat Trump. But yeah. So anyway, now I've officially said all my predictions, so I can be right later.
Can we talk about something very quickly that's a sidebar here? So Bloomberg's ad spend. So I exist in a world where I don't run into this stuff, and I just traveled last week, and was exposed to it for the first time. And I heard the Michael Douglas commercial. Have you guys heard this?
I've not heard.
Oh my God.
I've not heard any of the commercials, but I've only seen them, on the televisions at all of the restaurants or whatever. And it's so interesting because in pictures, he's saying one thing. Like looking at just the visuals, it takes a billionaire to beat a billionaire. Please elect me because I can defeat Trump. But what's the Michael Douglas thing?
Well, it's Michael Douglas comes out. He goes, "Hi, I'm Michael Douglas. I played the president in the movies. And I, a movie fan, and happen to be a huge fan of the movie he's talking about." It's like, wait a second, you're using as a basis to talk about Mike Bloomberg the fact that you played the president once 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, we all remember that. And then they hired Martin Sheen to replace you, and we all remember that better when it was called The West Wing. But also, the thing about that ad is that ad I don't think is as strong as they think it is, because it's all him talking, and you hear Michael Douglas talking, and Michael Douglas sounds very presidential, and then it cuts to, "I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I'm running for president."
Oh, so he out-presidents the presidential candidate.
Yes, he makes Mike Bloomberg feel so small and weak. And Bloomberg's got real problems this week. Like the audio that dropped yesterday is going to haunt him. And I don't care how much money you spend. That audio clip is inexcusable.
What I don't know this.
So
controversy.
the audio clip. Michael Bloomberg, of course, was the mayor of New York. One of the most controversial things that were happening while he was mayor was a police initiative called Stop and Frisk.
That's right.
So not one but two clips came out over the last 72 hours. But the one that's the ugliest is from an Aspen conference in which it's just racism. Like literally his thing is like, well, you can literally, these are actual quotes, not hyperbole. You can Xerox the face of you can take the description, Xerox it, and pass it out to all the cops. They're male minorities, 15 to 25. That's true in New York. It's true in virtually every city. Ooh. And then he then goes on to basically say that the reason why stop and frisk works is because you are randomly finding people that either have guns or don't. But if you frisk every black person with that description, then the people that would bring guns will now bring guns less because they know they're going to get randomly stopped by cops. So it's like him describing every critic's like vociferous thing, and it's just him very calmly saying, yes, that's exactly what we were doing. An authoritarian, racist strategy meant to keep black people in line.
And I think Bloomberg's now got a real lock on the Republican nomination for president. And
man, I think that there are a lot of things that get taken out of context and that people label racist and are not. But there is no denying that from beginning to end, that sentence is objective, flat, overt racist.
Yeah, and it's not like that's not even like the like, you know, like Mitt Romney 42% or something like that, where it's like if you listen to the larger thing that Mitt Romney was saying, it's like whatever. It's a larger argument for which that's a bad sentence. That it's like the larger thing for Bloomberg is like, no, that's even worse. Like he literally just keeps going.
It's like you hear the one thing, you're like, well, let's listen to the whole thing, and then you're like, oh my god, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, oh god, no, it's almost like you heard that Chappelle's latest thing was a little controversial, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh Dave, no, what are you doing? Like it's that.
Was that another thing that I missed?
Oh, his latest. He said some things in a previous.
Are you talking about the on the Netflix special?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did watch that.
He did another Netflix special, and then he gets to a moment. He goes, "Okay, here's where I get in trouble. You know, with the letters. Here they come.
Oh,
the
that's
L's,
right. Yeah.
the Q's, and the pluses." And it's like, oh, what are you doing? No, the alphabet people. Yeah, that's what somebody called. Yeah, and it's like, oh no.
So here's Justin. I know that you are a tactician of politics and a pragmatist, and I hate that these words are coming out of my mouth. But if Bloomberg, here's the problem. Bloomberg, this is definitely terrible, definitely overtly racist. He's going to go up against Trump. So does this necessarily, like, if he secures the nomination or whatever, like, there's
no, that's you're skipping past the part where it would be the larger problem. The larger problem would be him getting the nomination, because he is going to be up against a lot of very smart one or two very smart campaigns and a lot of other campaigns that are running, right?
A lot of well-intentioned campaigns.
A lot of very well-intentioned campaigns with well-intentioned candidates. But they're fucking furious that Mike Bloomberg is just moonwalking into this race. And more specifically, this is specifically when you have somebody like Bernie Sanders, who is truly, well and truly raising a shit ton of money from a lot of people at small numbers, but it's adding up into a big level. Like Michael Bloomberg has spent $400 million now.
Holy
and we're
cow.
not even at the point where like he's really like he said he'll drop like upwards of like $2 billion on a race. Like $1 billion campaigns are something that we just started seeing, that just kind of dawned in our modern political reality. And Bloomberg saying he'll spend twice that to do it. So there's going to be a real test of wills here on whether or not he's going to be able to overcome the fact that like he might very well have enough delegates to secure the nomination and have that convention in Milwaukee be a fucking riot. Like be just an absolute insurrection.
The issue, the real big issue here is that if Bernie secures a large majority of the delegates, and then goes in and it gets sniped by the establishment, there's going to be that behind the scenes conversation that, look, we literally did this 4 years ago, and that's why we lost. Can we really do that again? No, we don't necessarily want Bernie Sanders, but do we want 4 more years of Trump? And is taking this from Sanders doing that? That's going to be the big behind the scenes cigar smoking room question.
Yeah, and look, and that's going to happen before because you don't get this far without. I mean, Bloomberg is there with blessings of people that don't want Bernie there. I think that's why Bloomberg got in, and he's got in as hot as he has. He's actually run a fucking, like, if you're going to be a crazy billionaire who fucking is willing to drop $2 billion on a race, he's doing it the smart way, because right now, I mean, hell, he just did a thing for 1,000 people in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Nobody has even touched fucking going to Tennessee yet, but Tennessee is a Super Tuesday state. There's, like, he's spending money in places that nobody has even spent like a penny on an ad for. And so he's going to have massive name recognition in a lot of these states that right now everybody's battling in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina and Nevada. So no one's ever used this strategy. This is unique in political history. We'll see whether or not it works, but we're going to really see exactly how much fucking money matters.
But also his national polling isn't doing great, even though he's spending money on all those places. He's not getting a lot of traction.
I mean, he's polling better than Mayor Pete in a lot of stuff, and considering, you know, Mayor Pete won the early 2 races, theoretically that would be, I mean, that is something. But also national polling right now, I don't know exactly what to make of national polling right now, because, you know, Biden's still at 3rd place, and I don't realistic, or 2nd place in some of them, and I don't realistically think that he has a shot at this point.
Is there any chance that Biden just, you know, what's he got, like 2 weeks to Super Tuesday, just hunkers down and tries to be the like, I mean, I know it's unlikely, but if he hustles hard enough and fights hard enough, if he were to, like, take South Carolina, I mean, that's almost a guarantee that we're headed to a contested convention, right? I mean,
I mean, all right, everybody says contested convention. I'm allergic to the idea of us just believing. Everybody wants to believe it, right? Because by and large, conventions suck and are boring.
Well, also like because it would be really interesting is the thing.
Yes, we are biased to being a part of to wanting to be a part of history, and that would be a very interesting thing. Based on the math, it is more likely now than it has been previously. So I will acknowledge that. I do believe, again, if you're just going to bet on the last 70 years of history, usually things have a way of working themselves out before the convention, and we don't have a contested convention. Maybe this is different. I mean, we're certainly seeing the Bloomberg factor does take things into another realm, just because we've never seen anybody with the last person with this strategy, oddly enough, was fucking Rudy Giuliani, who also wanted to skip the first several contests and just play for Florida. And that ended horrifyingly for him. But Bloomberg has a lot more money and is running a much smarter campaign than Rudy Giuliani did back in 2008.
Yeah, people would chat were talking about the amount of money to point out. Mike Bloomberg has $60 billion, and off that through investments alone makes $2 billion a year. What he's spending on this campaign is literally just the money he's making this year.
Just the gravy, just the cream.
Yeah. The way it was described to me last night by somebody is that effectively to him, spending the most money, possibly double the most money anyone has ever spent in an election without taking a dime of money from anybody else, is Mike Bloomberg buying a car.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's a lot of money. You know, you spend a lot of money on a car.
I'll have that office right over there.
Yeah,
remember that time that Bill Gates decided to flex and, you know, end malaria? And instead, Mike Bloomberg is deciding to flex and run ads with Michael Douglas.
I had an interview with somebody from the New Hampshire Institute of Politics this morning, and they're like, well, yeah, you know, there's a lot of crazy tape out there, like when he was endorsing George W. Bush, and it's like, that's not crazy tape. That was at the convention. Like, he was the mayor of New York as a Republican like endorsing, like that was on every channel, right? Like this is he's a very weird, a person, but he has effectively, and I say this, in whatever, I mean, take this however you want, but he has bought support from the Democrats because he has funded so many Democrats. He really helped flip the House in 2018. He has put a ton of money toward causes that the Democrats obviously are very beholden to. But like, this is something that like nobody really wants to piss him off, because even if this fails, they're still going to want his money for campaigns for the next, however long he's alive.
Oh, that's wild. Everybody has to say like, "Oh, look at you running for the president, are you?" Like,
I don't know if it'll work. Don't know if it'll. I mean, prove me wrong.
Who knows? You might be crazy like a fox, or just crazy.
The proof's in the pudding right there. Raise your hand if this is the first time you ever heard that he was a Republican for a while before becoming the Democratic nominee for president, running for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy shit.
All of his achievements in politics to this point have been, I mean, as a Republican, and then he started donating money. I mean, really, the first big coming out party for him on the stage as a Democrat was in 2016. It's fucking 4 years ago at the convention in Philadelphia.
I mean, also, past results, future performance. Like Trump was Republican, a Democrat, Republican, and independent of Constitution Party.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't an elected official. Like that's like what party we are, and then when we decide to declare a party into politics, that is separate.
Which to me only proves the point even more, because like it's the same problem, only on top of that he had never held office and then won. So I don't know that precludes anything happening with Bloomberg.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Bloomberg, and the reason why that's an issue. The reason I bring that up is the number one issue that neoliberals and left center people bring up about Bernie is that he's not really a Democrat, that he's never been a Democrat, that he's an independent, and that he only chooses to run as a Democrat when he's running for president. Even though he caucuses with the Democrats, he's not really a Democrat. And that's the argument they use. So if they then flock to Bloomberg, they have to explain why they're going to support a Republican who has declared themselves a Democrat so they can run for president.
Yeah. And that's, I mean,
it's not
yeah, we're at fucking strange times. Very, very, very strange times.
I am getting hungry now for those 4 steaks. I am so hungry.
3 steaks. I think you're only on 3 steaks.
4 steaks.
Well, you know what? I'll cover Justin's steak.
We'll see. No. We'll see. We'll see if I want to double down. I don't know where. I mean, because Bernie, there's a shot that Bernie comes out of that convention wounded. There's a shot. I mean, I don't know where the Democratic Party is going to be, because if everybody's so horny for a contested convention, I don't know if people really realize what they're asking for in terms of like history. What the kind of people that contested conventions birth historically are not super successful.
I know one person.
Keep in mind that they still have super delegates. They're just restricted to round 3, and.
Yeah, 2, I think, actually. I think it's just the second ballot.
Did you just get the second ballot? I thought it was third ballot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and who knows what happens between now and then.
I mean, how hard is Hillary Clinton wishing for a contested convention so she could just march in, play the theme music? And
there's no way.
No way?
No, I mean, no. This was, by the way, the beginning of what led to me being the silliest goose around who eats his own shit yummy. Was my original bet is if Hillary Clinton runs for president in 2020, I will stream in full clown makeup for a week, because I do not think that is happening. Hillary Clinton has not done anything spontaneous in her life. Love her or hate her, if she were running for president, we would have known about it fucking 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this compelling piece of evidence. Press's play on that press club event thing from 1995. The thing that we broke down.
Oh,
the
God,
Forrest Gump video.
Oh, no, the Gridiron Club fucking Forrest Gump thing. Have you ever seen that, Cargill?
No.
Oh, my God.
Hillary Clinton, 90s, like circa 95, Hillary Clinton.
We spent 25 minutes breaking it down. Was it last week or the week before?
Yeah, one of them.
One of those two.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, we'll send it to you. It is. Oh, here we go.
I give people good advice, too. Been doing it for years. Like back in 1972, I was what you call a counterculture McGovernick. I even went to the convention.
That's enough for me.
I told Senator McGovern.
I gotta see the Photoshop.
Wait till 2 a.m. to give you acceptance speech.
I just had to see her in front of that podium.
Oh my God. Oh, for the audio listeners, the look on Cargill's face right now.
Like, I was there. I saw how cringeworthy she was at times in the Clinton administration. You know, it doesn't totally shock me, and at the same time, I would put that up there with her Super Predators conversation as
Jesus,
one of the worst pieces of video of her I've ever seen. Oh wow! Like, you know what? I just had a flashback. It's like you guys put on that video of Bad Romance all over again.
Oh my God.
Jeez. Did you guys see the thing that Rebecca Black posted yesterday? Apparently, it was 9 years.
She's doing Cats 3.
It was the 9-year anniversary of Friday coming out, and it was this
By
big.
the way, spoiler warning: Rebecca Black is an adult now and got really fucking hot.
She was already adorable. She had she was a beautiful kid.
Right.
Makes sense that she'd be a beautiful adult.
Let's.
Says the father of 3 beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
Predisposed to think everybody's beautiful.
That's Brian's blind spot there. He's just like, well, of course, that's what happened.
So this was the photo that she attached to the end of her notes.
Jesus fucking Christ.
App essay, but she wrote a little thing about.
Yeah, that's a little girl, Brian.
Shut
Pretty
up.
adorable little girl.
Shut up.
But basically, hey, look at what can really happen even in the. Isn't it so weird that Rebecca Black was only like a few years away from this sort of thing being completely uninteresting and like pretty much like not to the same like level of effort, but like I look at TikTok and there's a lot of people trying really hard on TikTok.
Yeah. Well, but she was the one that helped burn it out, right? It's like as soon as there was a thing where we all freaked out about like, oh my God, there's like fucking rich kids can make these weird like videos that are like one part bar mitzvah video and one part like maybe I'll get discovered or whatever kind of thing. And so it went viral. We all understood it, did a push up, ate an egg on it, and what else are you gonna do with it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then she was fucking baller and donated all the YouTube money she got to charity.
Oh, nice. That's nice.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Was that part of her thing?
Yeah, no. She that was her thing. Was she like as people were getting angry, she took all of the money and she donated it to charity. As a result, a lot of other pop stars came out for her. She ended up in one of God, who was it?
Katy Perry. She was in a Katy Perry
video.
Oh.
She just became one of those people who had gotten kind of bullied so much that it became inverse and people fell in love with her. And but then that thing, as she said in there, like when she was 19, she went out to LA to she went to try to have an actual music career, and nobody would work with them. Everyone was like, I am not going to produce a Rebecca Black album. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Which is crazy because like she's had some songs come out and like she's been on like TV many times and has she has very good vocal chops nowadays. Like
she did even then. I remember one of her media appearances was they were like, "Hey, I'm not bad here. Let me perform a song for you," and it was delightful and on key and great.
Yeah, I think she was on Fox has a new singing show, but it's not The Masked Singer. She was on. I saw a video of her on that, and she like blew it up. She was doing like an acoustic version of "Bye Bye Bye" from NSYNC.
I could see her with a single. I could see
She's got
with
many.
but something like really taking off, like some big like, oh wow, like who's got a real fucking
Oh,
banger.
you know what would I know what it is. She needs to do something with Lil Nas X. If she did something with Lil Nas X,
Oh, that would be fun.
Everyone in the world would fucking listen to that track, and if that track banged, that would become a thing, and it would become unironic. I mean, here's a guy who literally took one of the biggest jokes in pop music and crossover country and put him on a platinum record again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
And up with
like
Rebecca Black.
Dude, that I love this idea of Lil Nas X as like the Tarantino of pop music, that he's just like finding these like old relics and just like dusting them off for a new generation.
I saw a really great breakdown of why Old Town Road happened, and I believe it's a conspiracy theory of a certain sort, and I believe it 100%.
What was it?
10 years ago on Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus did this thing where she was doing a hoedown and she added hip hop to it and did the hip hop hoedown and added a rap verse to this country song and showed that country and rap could be fused together. And that would be the time that Lil Nas X was 9 years old and would be watching Hannah Montana, and then goes and makes a song that becomes big on hip hop on TikTok that does that, can literally get anyone in the industry. And who does he go and get? Miley Cyrus's dad to come in and sing vocals on that.
That's
Someone said that was in the movie.
Conspiracy
I don't
theory.
remember.
The conspiracy theory being that he only had the idea because of the show,
he's
or
inspired by it.
Inspired by it, yeah.
That the Hannah Montana movie is responsible for Old Town Road coming into existence, as that was the genesis that has been living in his head for 10 years.
Huh. I like that story.
I think
I
it's
like
a
that.
little bit of running when you're not being chased, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was influence in the DNA. I mean, like you pointed out, there's a reason that it's the most obvious joke in the world, and everybody comes up with the same idea. And so if it's an obvious idea, I don't know that we need to invent a super clever decade ago reason for the idea to exist.
Except for the ties that are there, that are why would this guy who is a up and coming hip hop artist choose Billy Ray Cyrus to sing with him? Like why that choice? That's the question that's being answered there. Why go to that? It's not like like somebody's like, who we really need on this song? Rex and Effects. We need some rump shaking going on. Like it's.
Well, I mean, I think the boring connection is that I think there was a connection between Lil Nas X being kicked off the country charts, and I think Billy Ray Cyrus was also kicked off the country charts like at some point during the Achy Breaky Heart thing, or had some like not real country a kerfuffle, and like was shouting out Lil Nas X for be like, oh, don't worry, like, oh, this like what like Willie Nelson told me, like if you're not getting kicked out, then you're not trying or whatever. And so like that was the initial connection that led to the remix.
Also, I suspect that there's at least one order of magnitude, possibly two orders of magnitude, of difference between Rex and Effects and Billy Ray Cyrus. I think you sincerely underestimate the level.
Songs back to back, real quick. Can we get a clip of?
Yeah.
We get some rump shaker going on, because I think that's what we need in this house right now.
Hey Cargill, did you ever watch Infinity Train?
No.
It's good. Episodes are only 10 minutes long. It's good procedural storytelling. But you haven't seen it, so I won't talk about it.
It's on Cartoon Network, so
yeah.
see it on the Cartoon Network app.
Yeah.
Let's pick a show title, please.
Yeah.
There was one Escape from New Hampshire, I think, is good. Rule of thumb is The Dances with Wolves of Pornography is very good. I like that a lot.
Professor apologizes for tight five is very good.
That's a good one.
I was proud of Karen is the manager.
Shocking revelation.
I'd want to avoid anything political because then I suspect some people will think we're talking a bunch of politics on the show, which I think we talked mainly in the after show politics. Or I guess we had a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah,
Reverse name drop.
The reverse name drop is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Screenwriter apologizes for cats too. That's good. Scooter picture.
Oh, I really like that. All right, let's go back to the top, see what we clicked on.
That's racism, bro.
I like the dances with wolves of pornography. That's my pick.
Yeah. I almost kind of love Screenwriter apologizes for cats too.
That's fine too because it does.
I kind of want that too.
I can get behind that.
Juice?
That's my life for the last.
yeah, I'm with it. I agree.
Alrighty. Thank you to Badweave for that and everyone who submits show titles using the Bang S command in the chat room. I'm going to write an email very quickly.
Oh hells yeah. What time did you get up this morning, Justin?
I wasn't up too early, but it's on East Coast time, so it was probably about 7 o'clock East Coast time, 7 in the morning East Coast time.
Oh geez, and so now it's already it's past 1. Oh shit, it's past 12:30 here. We started late.
Right, we started an hour
late.
Yep.
Late.
Right, yeah.
I'm glad the pre-show was so silly and fun.
I'm glad that you guys, were able to do that again. Thanks for everybody moving everything around because obviously last night would not have been feasible. I went to the Yang the end of the tour for the Yang gang last night.
I hear that there was just a real good vibe throughout the whole thing.
It was. There were definitely no sullen faces. It felt a lot more like the last day of summer camp. They were all very excited about the memories and the friends that they'd made and excited to come back.
I suspect that a lot of people who were involved with the campaign knew that this year was a bit of a quixotic quest. But which probably makes it okay that there's an official declared ending to the I
mean, to be totally honest, I'm the thing that I would unironically say is actually impressive about Andrew Yang is that he fucking quit the race when like he knew that there was no path for him, but he had such a dedicated following that he probably could have kept going with a skeleton crew and just doing events, especially through South Carolina. But in his speech, he's like, "Hey, I don't want to take your money anymore. Like, I won't win." So I don't want to take your money. And that's something that if that sounds unremarkable to you, trust me, in politics, that's fucking remarkable that anybody would say that.
People keep taking money after they quit to pay off their debts.
Yeah. Well,
wasn't that what happened with Kamala? She had just raised a huge bunch of funding right before she
Peaced out?
Yeah. Was it Kamala?
Yeah, I mean, great follow on Twitter, Dave Leventhal from my buddy from the Center for Public Integrity. Like he'll just go back and every once in a while post on Twitter like what campaigns that ended like a decade ago still owe, that they're still like they still have debtors of
really?
like tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes even more than that. But campaigns are usually fucking really super sloppy and disrespectful, in my opinion, to the people that support them. And so fucking kings to Yang for saying like, I'm not here for the so I can live my life on the road and like be a rock star for these dwindling crowds, even though he's got a lot of support. I'm very curious to see what he does next.
To me also, that's the right play if you're self-aware enough to think through the fact that you might be running again in 2024 or 2028, and he's young enough, and he did a absolutely stunningly remarkable job of building a name for himself and going from zero to something in the minds of the majority of Americans, and it's cheesy to say like that alone is a victory, but honestly, that alone is a victory. And if you're playing the long game, then that it's much better to like, you got it. You earned real estate in the minds of Americans. Bank, like in the weakest link, shout the word bank and peace out, and have everybody have, isn't there one guy that was good at math and had a sensible plan, 4 years later, 8 years later, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you could literally add up half a dozen to a dozen boring white guys who dropped out of the race early and add all their support together and get about what Yang built up.
Yeah.
Like, it's what he did was impressive. I think the most impressive thing about him is it's something that I tweeted about last night. He's the only candidate whose fan base didn't annoy me at some point. Like, even people I'm very much behind candidates that I love. Some of their supporters drive me up the wall, and Yang supporters were enthusiastic and never insulting. And it's something that I was really impressed by.
They got some 99.99999% agree. There were a few.
You really run into something that I didn't run into. So
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. No, but I agree in general. I mean, I think that they're that was to me. We'll see what happens with Bloomberg, but by the end of this, in my opinion, there will be only one campaign that will be studied to look at the playbook to see how they did it and to mimic it. And I think it's the Yang campaign. Like the Yang campaign is something that was fresh to launch somebody like from a dude's couch. He outlasted like 4 sitting senators. He brought an entire issue to the fold that I do not think that this is. I think UBI is Napster. Like now that is out there in the world, we are going to see some version of it, and I think that we're going to see versions of it on both sides of the aisle going forward.
10 years. I argue that about 10 years from now, UBI is going to be the Republican version of how to deal with the problems that we're having.
Well, because like you could literally just take Yang's thing and tweak the way he talks about it, and it's entitlement reform.
Yeah. Well, Yang's version is the bad version. That's the only big problem with Yang, is there are 2 versions of UBI, and he was getting behind the one that is mostly held to be the bad version. It's the easier to explain version, but it's the one that doesn't actually solve the problems the way the other version does, which is what I find fascinating.
I think that difference between the two, it reminds me a bit about the fair tax, which was the idea of replacing the entire tax code, is what, mid-2000s, with a value-added tax so that it incentivized savings and you only paid taxes when you spent money. You would generate the same revenue. But where that broke down is Democrats love the idea of like, yeah, let's add a value-added tax. And then they're like, no. Republicans are like, we only want to do the fair tax if we can completely wipe away all taxation. And so because they couldn't agree on that, nothing ever got done. And I strongly suspect same thing's going to happen with UBI. There will be, everybody agrees that they like the Republicans and libertarians like the idea of entitlement reform, but much like the fair tax, it's contingent on the idea of taking away current programs. Democrats will never allow that, so the two will never get along, and I don't think UBI will ever happen.
We'll see what happens. We've got some massive things that are going to happen in the next 10 years that are going to change the landscape, so the old rules don't apply. And so you've got to kind of think of it in context of the new rules. People are asking in chat, so I'll lay it down just real quick. The 2 versions, the simple version of it is, there's what I call the shitty version, which is Yang's version, which is we're going to give you X amount of dollars a month, and that's it. And you can do with it what you want. And you can also make money and work. You can not work, whatever you want to do. And then they find the way where in taxation where that comes out, whether it comes from a billionaire tax or what have you. The other version of UBI is you tie it in a way to cost of living. But how it's paid for is entirely out of if you work a job, say you get $2,500 a month. If you work a job, you have to pay every dollar of that $2,500 back. So essentially, if you worked a job that paid you $2,500 a month, it would zero out. And that on surface, that sounds like madness, except that what you realize is the question is well, then who would have a job? And the answer is no. Who would have a job that would pay only $2,500? So what you're essentially doing is not only creating a UBI that helps keep the economy afloat, where you have massively shrinking jobs due to automation, but that what you have as a result is it now sets a minimum wage of how much what do I have to pay to an employee to get them to come in and work and do this job? So what it does is it creates this rising ceiling of actual wages for employment. And so
rising floor, you mean, or?
Yes, rising floor. So you end up getting this. You end up getting, well, nobody's going to come out and work for $30,000, because why would they work for just an extra $5,000 a year? So you end up getting UBI taking care of the citizens that can't get jobs because we simply don't have them. And the people who are employed being able to enjoy the finer things in life for that employment. And making sure that there's no such thing as a minimum wage job anymore, that a minimum wage job is still living well above what you'd be making off UBI. And that's the version that I think will ultimately, 10 and 20 years from now, we'll be arguing over implementing.
Yeah, man. I don't know. This shit's crazy. But kings to fucking Yang. I was happy to be there at that moment in history, and we'll be giving away on the podcast on Friday's episode. I have posters and a sign from the final Yang event, the final Yang 2020 event.
Did you get it signed?
He was gone by the time I got there. So he rushed out pretty quick after the first results came on TV, and then he pieced out. So I was just there I was literally there on the podcast that's out now, because we have a segment called the Campaign Undertaker, which, as candidates are out of the race, the Campaign Undertaker comes for their souls. And for the first time ever, we have a live eulogy of the campaign. So I got one of the Yang supporters that I talked to give his eulogy of the Yang campaign, to remember it as it lived. And in the background, as he's doing it, the bartender is literally calling for last call, which
I stopped the barbaric Yang gang over the rooftops of the world. Hashtag Yang gang.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Hey, Cargill, we know that by your schedule, you've not yet even had second breakfast, but by my schedule, I'm 20 minutes to having to take my daughters to school. So I hate to be the party pooper, especially because Justin is in beast mode, still rocking it at nearly 2 a.m. East Coast time.
Well, thank you for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, you're fantastic as always. It's great to hang out with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. Way to throw everybody off the scent on the cat's tooth thing. I think everybody bought it that it was a joke. That's awesome. Good luck. Good luck shooting in April.
I'm working with Helen Mirren right now. I am in the most delicate of moods. It is great.
All right, love you guys.
Fucking A. See y'all.